All right, here's a little about me. You guys work here in the customer journey, here and here. I work, and my clients work in the third stage of the customer journey, here. We take these successful, loyal customers that you're creating, and we turn them into advocates and evangelists and spreaders of word of mouth. They join customer communities, maybe customer advisory boards, and so forth, and do a lot of things to help grow the business further. So I've got a book out with Harvard Business Review. I've done a couple of dozen articles with them on this subject. I host an annual summit on customer engagement in Silicon Valley. It's now in its 16th year. And here's some of the companies that we work with. And we also do a little research, and some of this research here, I think, may have the silver bullet that Diane was talking about. The elusive silver bullet. So let's see if I can produce this. I want to give you a suggestion for a solution to this problem, and it's one that the gentleman referred to with a Harvard Business Review article last year. There was a similar article in Customer Think about how these initiatives are not establishing business impact to the satisfaction of the C-suite. So you've got kind of this standoff here where the CX team, you've got to have C-suite support. But the C-suite is saying we need business impacts. These are hard to produce, as we've seen. So I'd like to suggest a solution to this, potential solution. It's kind of an alt version of customer experience. It's a scaled down version of customer experience that does make significant impacts on C-suite priorities. So I was gonna call this CX Lite, but it sounds like a beer, so I'm calling it CX Agile. And here it is. Picking up on Airbnb, the slide that Diane showed us about co-creating, this is the potential silver bullet right here. Co-creating the customer experience. So to be clear, I'm not talking about like doing surveys and gathering a lot of data and getting inside the customer's head. I'm talking about bringing the customer into creating the customer experience, like we saw on that photo of Airbnb and their customers. They're doing part of the work. Here's another good representation from my friends in Fluitive. They're in the boat rowing with your employees to create the customer experience. That's what I mean by co-creating the customer experience. And I want to tell you 3 reasons why your C-suite's going to be receptive to this. And the first reason is that co-creation is familiar. It's not some strange new thing that your C-suite is being asked to do. It's familiar. 2 of the most common places where it's used is with customer support. The idea of diverting support requests from the call center, the expensive, high-priced call center, to your customer community, where they'll provide support. Often it's better support for free. And then the area most associated with co-creation is product development. And this has been around for decades and decades. There's a ton of research on this showing its efficacy. It is typically more effective than ordinary product innovation that's done by your internal product team. Co-created products tend to be more effective. The example I'm using up here, examples are Microsoft. They pretty much originated the idea of making the shift of customer support to the customer community. 3M had an interesting situation where they actually did a side-by-side comparison of products innovated by internal product teams and products co-created, co-innovated with customers. So how did these work out? The Microsoft initiative saved hundreds of millions of dollars in customer support costs. That'll get the attention of your C-suite. 3M, how did that side-by-side comparison work? Customer co-created innovations got on average 8 times the revenue as the regularly done innovations, 8x the revenue. They were about to shut the division down where they were doing this. This saved that division. That'll get your C-suite's attention. Then the third thing, and this is research that that came out of some work we've done recently that I want to share with you because I think you'll find this interesting. Co-creation is improving the customer experience and creating that kind of business impact throughout the customer journey. Not just in a few places, but throughout the customer journey. Here's the two examples we saw. Let's look at a place where you wouldn't expect to find co-creation. Let's look at a couple of places. Let's take retention, customer retention. Big C-suite issue in a lot of companies. Retention's a problem. What are we going to do? SAS Canada is my example here. They're a client, and their Canadian division was running into problems with retention. It was declining precipitously. It was kind of scary. So their first thought was, okay, we need to stage a big marketing campaign. We've got to do something about this. They were ready to spend a lot of money. And the customer advocacy manager said, I think our customer champions might be able to help. And the C-suite said, well, okay, go for it. You can try it. So here's what happened. The customer advocacy manager engaged 50 of their customer champions, their best advocates. And here's what they did. The customer champions helped to organize live events in 20 cities around Canada, all throughout Canada. They lined up speakers. They set the agenda. Sometimes they spoke themselves. They also started a newsletter. They also did a series of webinars. It was an exceptional amount of effort they put into this. This wasn't a case of helping with the work. They were doing most of the work. Retention rates totally restored. And for a lot less money than they would have spent on some expensive marketing campaign. Customer champions did all this for free. Let's take the other end of the customer experience, the awareness and education phase for the buyer. And this is where you need good branding, among other things. BMC, highly respected business software firm. They were in the midst of a rebranding effort, and it was high pressure. All branding efforts are very high pressure, and this was no exception. The CMO and his marketing team found very quickly they couldn't agree on answers to some of the most important questions they had to figure out. They kept arguing and debating. They couldn't decide, and they were getting kind of scared. The director of customer programs at BMC had no idea how her customers could possibly help out with a branding effort, but she kind of dug in a little bit, and when she saw the questions they were getting stuck on, and the discussions that they were having, she said, they need to hear from our best customers. So she starts taking the hardest question they had at that moment, sent it to the customers. Two things happened. First of all, the customers had no problem coming to a consensus on which decision they should make. It was an either or. Pick this name or that name for a new product. The second thing that happened is they provided additional insights and perspectives that the branding team and the CMO would never have come up with on their own, and they knew it. And after 2 or 3 of these, this gave such confidence and clarity to the branding team and to the CMO that the CMO said, from now on, I want us to take every important decision and consult with our customers going forward. Branding initiative, successful. A couple more quick examples. Let's do this one. Adoption. That's a big problem. Lots of companies, customers buy your product, but they don't continue using it. They disappear. LinkedIn Sales Navigator had that problem. The services people weren't able to get these customers to stick. And what somebody came up with was the idea of, they asked the question, how can customers help with adoption, or experienced customers? And the answer that came out of that was, let's have the experienced customers create case studies for new customers, right? Case studies are generally thought of as something you do for marketing, for buyers, for prospects. This was case studies for new customers. And the idea was to get the more experienced customers to kind of act as mentors to the newbies, to show them the ropes. Highly effective. Dramatic impact on this C-suite goal. So let me suggest this, that you try this. If you think of the C-suite as your customer, right, they are your customer. They have your budget, you have to have their cooperation, you want to, make it work for them. Suppose you instead of starting your relationship with them by saying, we're going to do a customer experience transformation, why not start with one of their existing objectives? It might be retention, it might be adoption, it might be product innovation. Who knows what it is? The chances are very good that if you ask the question, can our customers help with this? The chances are very good that they can. It goes from being kind of a standoff here to, hey, how about if we help you with this retention problem you're having? And the answer comes back much better. So that's my suggestion for you to try a slimmed down version of CX when you run into that problem of not getting business impacts. I hope you find it helpful. Do we have time for take a couple of questions?
We got one question.
Yeah. It's not so much that they're fans and they love you so much because, this is a business. But what they get out of participating in these kind of co-creation efforts is things like they get to affiliate with their peers, they get more of a say in the services you provide them. They sometimes can build their reputation and get better known in their profession. And then for those of you who think you don't have a lot of loyal customers, I can pretty much tell all of you, you've got more than you think. You can start doing this right now. You don't have to wait until your Net Promoter Score gets up to a certain level. You can start now. Yes, sir.
I was hoping you could give us like a slim down version of the Salesforce example. I was really curious about that.
The Salesforce example, I'll give it to you in 30 seconds. Mark Benioff, when he was building that company, his most potent market generator, marketing costs are huge for a startup. You've got to get those down. His best demand generator was simply putting customers together with prospects to have conversations. The local sales guy would just maybe rent a space in a bar, buy some beers, and just let them talk. No PR people there, no marketing people to guide the conversation. Just let them freaking talk. And customers that attended those, 80% of those prospects that attended those eventually became customers of Salesforce. Salesforce is a great model for this whole thing. Mark Benioff co-created that company extensively throughout the customer journey. So, good question.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you. Appreciate it.